Afternoon, everyone. As Nat introduced, my name's Alisa Bowen. I'm from Thomson Reuters, and so my perspective is very much anchored in the news environment, newspapers and news magazines. That's what I know best. But innovate or die, I guess, is the theme. Not a new theme, but particularly relevant for the press. I think the question is really wrong, though. Not when will we lose the printed page, but who should care if we lose the printed page? For me, I don't have a passion for newspapers in particular, but I have a very deep passion for the role that journalism and the institution of journalism plays in our society. And just with the last panel, it's relatively critical that we get this right and that we work together to protect that, because without that, we're all less happy people. Let's plan the wake. You've seen these statistics before. The graph on the top left is the daily paid circulation in the US. You can see that massive drop-off in the last year or two. Paid circulation per capita on the right. Paid circulation per household down below. Does that mean it's all over? Where are Americans getting their news? I apologise for these being US-centric statistics, but every country has a different set of statistics, so I picked one for the sake of simplicity. The answer is everywhere. They're getting it from multiple sources. Local TV is very important. National networks, 73%. Online news, 61%. And that tiny little bubble down below, national newspapers, 17%. Hal Varian, the Google economist, in March presented a very interesting summary of the problem in the newspaper market in the US. And he summarised the context for thinking about this with three useful points, I thought. First, news has never been a profitable business for newspapers. Not the general news at the front of the paper, not the front page. The cross-subsidisation that used to be possible between, say, the sports pages, the entertainment pages, the revenue that comes from job listings and classifieds, and the general news at the front is no longer working. Consumers are able to go online and go direct to specialised searches, Zillow for real estate, or Edmunds for cars, or Amazon for entertainment, weather for weather reports. So they're able to bypass that channelization within the newspaper that they used to go for. And the truth is that newspapers have never made a lot of their money from news, most of their money from news. It's very hard to do contextual targeting for pure news. So if you're left with servicing the pure news market, you have a real challenge making that attractive to your advertisers. It's inherently unpredictable by definition. It's often unpleasant and not something that major brands and advertisers necessarily want to be associated with. And frankly, as we've heard this morning from many of our colleagues who are doing more advanced targeting technologies, the alternatives provide better ROI. And then, as we saw from the statistics, and you've seen countless versions of what I showed, people are spending much less time reading news online than they did offline. This is partly where the concept of going from analog dollars to digital pennies comes in. People are spending less time reading news online. I think one data point I saw yesterday said 7 minutes online versus 28 minutes in a newspaper. So the people who are still reading news are spending less time with it online, and the people who are spending a lot of time with it offline, there are fewer of them. But the body still does have a pulse. I think there are three things that if I were running a newspaper, I would be thinking about really long and hard right now. The first is to get really real about your cost base. There have been many estimates around how much newspapers need to change the economic model, but I think most of those studies seem to centre around between 25 and 35% reduction on the current cost base for running newspapers. So get real about your cost base. Circulation and subs, which contributes to the production costs, is about 20% of revenue. Production and distributions, though, is about 52% of the costs of running a paper. So, for argument's sake, moving to a digital-only production system could save half of your expense base. Tony Joseph, who runs a consultancy helping media organisations do this, so somewhat biased, was quoted recently as fairly well publicised that up to 75% of a news desk's regular daily editing activities could be outsourced. I think media organisations could be thinking about that a lot more creatively as well. It's not just outsourcing to organisations like Thomson Reuters that have media agency businesses, but it's crowdsourcing, having local parent groups report on the local school sports activities, for example, outsourcing technology support. The Telegraph in the UK, a very, very well-known case study on, as they put it, figure out what you do best and outsource the rest. And then having a core in-house team that's producing something really unique that your community values. Second thing that I would be really thinking hard about is get real about what you stand for. Newspapers don't equal news anymore. You're not going to break a major story with a few exceptions in a newspaper. The ubiquity of information in real time means that the newspaper isn't necessarily the place you go to find out what has just happened. It's the place you go to find out what's going on in your community, to be entertained, to get some particular or unique insight. And as we've discovered in the B2B market, there's a certain badge of honour associated with carrying around or being seen with certain print titles. The Economist is a great example of that, I think. People enjoy reading the very high-quality content. They get a lot of unique perspective from it, but they also enjoy being seen with it. And number 3, get the mix right. So while print is declining, what we've seen in our business is that virtual media can also drive demand for physical media. We've seen this mostly in the event space, where we've established virtual communities of business professionals that speak with each other online. But what that drives is a real appetite for them to get together and meet face-to-face, for them to read each other's speeches, for them to see each other published in more traditional outlets. Cross-platform marketing, as we've heard time and time again today, is much more effective for marketers. And the brand associations can be really powerful drivers of loyal media usage. So understand what it is that you stand for as a print publisher. Understand what the relative role of print is in the total mix of the platforms that you offer, and focus on that. The downsizing or the relative reduction in frequency of many newspapers in regional America has helped them actually get on a more secure economic footing, whilst also focusing the organisation on what the role of digital is in their overall mix. And mobile, new media with a typo there, can be a Trojan horse for new customers. So understanding how to bring in new segments of the audience that you haven't necessarily served very well in the past with your print publication, selling or providing them with information digitally over a mobile service or an alert service or something like that, and then having them understand that there's more, that they can go to the print publication for more, is particularly interesting. So I think there is potential. In summary, I would quote Jeff Jarvis, who's a likeable, very has a lot to say about these kinds of topics. And for me, this summarises it. He says, print is not dead. Print is where words go to die. Too many of the ideas trapped on pages end up at best in unused archives or in recycling pods. They should be online, where they're searchable, discoverable, linkable, and part of the conversation. And for me, this summarises, I think, the future of journalism, I hope, and print certainly has a role in that. But it's only one part of an overall ecosystem that is largely digital, largely interactive, and largely a collaboration between both the journalism institution, which is so critical to our society, and the audience that reads it. Thank you.